everybody. Happy Monday. I know everybody, Hog fans got to be in a good mood today, right? Like,
yeah.
There's just walking into Monday, you know, like it's a Friday.
I mean, we were out
head
here.
held high.
We were in here Saturday.
Yeah.
And it had been so long since we heard noise from Dixon Street.
Oh, it was loud. It was
going
great.
Crazy down below us.
We had missed it, so it was great to hear. All right, we're obviously going to answer your questions in today's Ask Mike segment, but as we always do, let's talk about COVID, Mike, because COVID impacted the SEC this past week.
Yeah, after 2 or 3 weeks of pretty good news, last week was a disaster. You had 2 games canceled. Vanderbilt and Missouri was canceled, and Florida and LSU was canceled. And the Florida thing was weird because their explanation was wacky. They ended up saying, well, we went to College Station and we played A&M, and 2 guys came back and they had symptoms, but they didn't tell us. And so then they just went around and spread it. And now a whole bunch of people have it, including the head coach. I'm thinking, what? You're supposed to check these guys every day. What, do they just wander in and it's the honor system about COVID? So I don't know how that happened. Dan Mullen has it, and everybody's like bashing him because he was the guy that said 2 or 3 weeks earlier, when the state of Florida opened up, he's like, we want to have 80,000 in here.
He wanted to fill a stadium.
Yeah, and he was kind of clueless about we're not at that point yet where you can do that. And so people are saying that somehow caused him to get COVID. No, that didn't cause him to get COVID. It just means he was a meatball.
I think some people just believe in karma.
Yeah, maybe it's karma, but it's not. There's no proof that that's what caused that to happen. It sounds like there's just a problem in the state of Florida now. They opened up completely, and it clearly had a problem.
I think Florida's just upset still that they got beat by A&M.
Yeah, could be that too. Could be that. The point is, those 2 teams. The 2 teams that got sucked up in that and didn't get to play last week, they're playing this week. But those 2 teams aren't playing this week. So they're getting like 2 weeks to try and get their act together. Now, there's some other things that have happened. Nick Saban got it or tested positive, and then it was really weird because he goes home for 3 days, and it looks like he's not going to coach. And there's this basically an NCAA rule. It doesn't have anything to do with COVID. You cannot coach from your house. They won't let you do it. So he wasn't going to be able to coach, but apparently he never had any symptoms, and in each of those 3 days he tested negative. So they let him go ahead and coach. I think the theory being that he probably had a false positive and that he never had it to begin with. I don't think you get over this stuff in 24 hours.
Right. So
that was better news for them. Now there's also, let me look at this mask thing. Yeah, this is interesting. 3 $100,000 fines were handed out. They were handed out to Tennessee, Ole Miss, and A&M for violating these mask protocols. That means, and they didn't specify.
Is that from today?
No, that was.
Okay, because I was going to ask you, so keep going.
I don't know if there's any new ones.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I read an article, but it didn't have the schools in it. So these are the schools. I read an article just didn't have them listed. But if you watch this game on Saturday, Lane Kiffin is in the face of the referees with no mask on.
He's
already been fined, so he's about to get fined again.
That's what they said. These 3 schools, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and A&M, already got one. And Jimbo is the same way. He acts like he doesn't have a mask. He doesn't need one. So they all got 100,000 now. Greg Sankey said second violation is 200,000. It doubles every time you do it. So I don't know what's going to happen here. But those 3 schools have a problem. What we have to hope is that this thing somehow, we need a vaccine. I don't know when it's going to be available. Problem is, even if it's available soon, it may take a while to work its way into players and fans. They're not on the priority list. The thing I'm concerned about is how it may affect basketball, except that the saving grace in basketball, from what I'm hearing, is because you have a smaller roster, a lot of those guys have already had it at various schools, and so they're kind of not as worried about them having it. But the impact that COVID could have on the fans is big, because schools like Arkansas, and they're not the only one by any means, it's happening everywhere. You need your fans back for money. And if you can't put people in, let's say they just say, hey, it's winter now and it's gotten worse, no fans. All of a sudden you get no revenue from that. You got a little bit of revenue from football, you get no revenue from basketball. So it's real murky right now.
Basketball's around the corner too, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, let's take some questions. Said, good to see you again. Said 76, and our first question wants to know if the Big 12 called and said, we are expanding, can we come very close or match the money you get from the SEC? Do the powers that be take the call and seriously listen? I get the prestige of being an SEC school, but the regular screw jobs show exactly what the conference thinks of Arkansas.
Yeah, that's kind of a long-winded, convoluted question there, but I understand what he means. And, you know, I've said this, there's a difference between what I like and what I understand most fans like. I'd love to go back to the Big 12. I love that conference. I love going to those places because that's where I grew up, and I went to games in all of those places. And I don't like the SEC. I think it's full of smart alecks. I think each of these schools think they're really great and the rest of them are terrible. And I think there's a lot of snobbiness in the SEC, and I do think there's prejudice at the SEC office. But that's not going to happen. Most Arkansas fans, if you ran a poll, I'm convinced about 80% of them would say, no, stay in the SEC. You get a lot of money, you get prestige, and the average Arkansas fan would tell you, just get better in this league. Don't whine and run off because we get screwed around. Just get better. I think even if you get better, you're still going to get screwed around because you're too far away from the conference office. And here's the thing about the SEC, and maybe it's true of other conferences. Maybe I just don't remember what the Southwest Conference was like. These schools are all on their own. They care about themselves. There's no unity. They talk about this. You sit in a football stadium or a basketball arena in SEC, that's fine. But that's not reality. Do you think Florida fans give a ding-dong about what happens to Arkansas?
No.
No, they don't. And then you have your rivalries, and they hate each other, like Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So, you know, there's no unity there, and it's spread out all over the place. Look how far it is from the SEC office to Fayetteville. How could you have any influence? It's 1,000,000 miles away. And those people get up every day that work in that SEC office, and who are they around? Auburn fans and Alabama fans. You think they're not going to get a break sooner or later? Yeah, they are.
Yeah. All right. Wizard of Hog says, I have read some debate about having a 9-conference schedule with just 3 non-conference games. This pandemic has forced a change after seeing how much fun this expanded conference schedule can be. I think many more will be for 9-game SEC schedule sooner rather than later. And there are other Power 5 conferences that do that model.
Yeah. I don't favor it because I think, especially in the SEC, I think 8 games is tough enough. You add 9, it just makes it harder. Now, we're playing 10 this year, but this is a COVID year. I wouldn't think you'd want to do that every year. Here's the problem. The more SEC games you play, unless you're in Alabama or maybe a Georgia, you play this schedule, it's going to knock you down. It's going to knock you down in terms of what kind of bowl game you can get to because you're playing too many conference games. So I like all 4 of those non-conference games. I think they serve a purpose. And I also like the fact that those mid-majors need that money. And if you eliminate that, you put more pressure on them.
You're going to see programs
I'm worried
fall.
enough as it is that with this COVID thing, a lot of these mid-major schools are going under. And I don't like to see that. I like to see people be able to get scholarships. And if you can't get a scholarship to a Power 5 school, then maybe another school. You know, I've had people in my family that didn't get a major college scholarship or a Power 5, but got others, and I know what it means to them. So I wouldn't like to see those conferences go away.
What if the SEC, they have a rule now, you got to play one other Power 5 school right now. That's as long as you're 4 non-cons, one has to be a Power 5. Could you make it 2 Power 5s and maybe balance it out a little bit?
Maybe that might help a little bit because the issue is fans like big games, and they don't. And when you got a ding-dong team coming up on your schedule, you overlook it. Whether that sometimes, and we've seen that here, sometimes those teams jump up and beat you. But the fans don't like that, but I do. I'm just a traditionalist. I think you got to play those kind of games, and I like 4 non-conference games.
All right. Pork Soda wants to know, after what you have seen so far, what order would you objectively rank the new SEC coaches in Sam Pittman, Mike Leach, Lane Kiffin, Eli Drinkowitz? Bonus question, what do you think will take to make the bowl game? And which of the new coaches will make a bowl this year?
All these bonus questions and 2-parters confuse me.
Come on, Pork Soda.
I usually use Tara to remind me of the second one. So if I forget,
all right,
you got to remind me.
Okay.
I would rank them. First of all, it's way too early. I mean, just because, we got 4 games in, it could change. It could change next week. It could change at any time. Right now, as we sit right here, I would rank them Pittman, Kiffin, Drinkwitz, and Leach.
Okay.
but it doesn't have to stay that way. Now, bowl game, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say Arkansas and Ole Miss make a bowl game. Those other two teams don't. Mississippi State and Missouri don't.
Yeah, and there's no limits to bowl games now, so it's kind of open season. You play well, and Arkansas, again, you're a hot team.
Likely.
Everyone's talking about Arkansas right now, and that helps the Razorbacks in the postseason. All right, it is way too early for, oh, shoot. You highlighted for these for me, too, so I am so sorry. Totally read your answers. Semper Ahog wants to know, there is still a lot of emotion from the poor call at the end of the Auburn game. Has anyone ever done an objective historical review of calls that have gone against teams and impacted the outcomes of game? Be interested to see where Arkansas falls in this review. I know there are some Hog fans that keep track of that.
I know of no such study, no such review. I'm going to guess and say if there ever was an accurate review, you'd find that Arkansas would be in a group of schools that would probably get those kind of calls more often than Alabama or maybe LSU or maybe Georgia. But I don't think there'd be a huge difference.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is that you just got to live with it. The issue in terms of you can't leave the league, we just addressed that. Now, look, here's the real issue. I don't know how you can't know about bias within a referee. You can never know unless you know that person, whether they're affected by that. But what you can know is the SEC is too good a football league. The level of play on the field and the interest in the stands and the commitment of the fans is first in all of these conferences, the best conference in college football. Why aren't your referees clearly head and shoulders above these others? And I don't know, but they're not, because I watch a lot of other games, and I'm not saying the SEC is bad every week, but they seem to have these goofy calls all the time that they can't get right. And this thing that happened in the Auburn game, it's just gotten more and more embarrassing for the league, because finally, so you have the incorrect call, they do the review, they come back and explain the review by basically saying we can't overturn, because of the whistle, we can't overturn this. Then the conference office knew that was incorrect. So they went, oh gosh, what do we do? So they came out with this phony baloney explanation about continuous football play or something. And they had to jump on the fumble sooner or something like that.
Yeah.
And the problem was that it had happened the year before in another football game, in another SEC game, which they got it right. So this explanation was dumb. And not only that, the people that do the rules for college football went, oh my goodness, we can't let that stand. That's dopey.
Yeah.
So they came back and made it clear by making it clear in the rules that if that happens again, if the ball is spiked backwards, it's a fumble, whether somebody blows the whistle or not, and any player that gets on it, doesn't matter how long it is. I mean, you can't start the next play, but any player that gets on it, that's a fumble, and that school has it. So if that happens in the future, Arkansas gets the ball.
Yeah,
but
and wins.
It won't happen. It won't change the outcome of that game.
Yeah, can't go backwards. All right. #Hammerdown says, Coach Pittman keeps the injury status of his players very quiet. He seems to be dissatisfied with players tweeting about their own health. Does it really make it harder for the opposing coach to game plan based on players on the field?
Well, first of all, let's go to the NFL, because they have a totally different policy. They publish the injuries every week. Now, why do they do that? Because there's a lot of betting on NFL games, and they don't want people betting on inside information. So we're just going to make the injuries public, so everybody's on the level playing field. They don't do that in college football because they don't like to acknowledge that people bet on college games. Now, they do, but they don't like it. So they don't have that policy. So each coach is on his own. I can only tell you what I would do. Yeah. I would do exactly what Sam Pittman is doing. If I was the head coach of a team, you wouldn't know jack about who was injured on my team. I wouldn't tell you. I wouldn't make it public. Nobody would know. You'd find out when the game started. So I'm with Coach Pittman on that. But each coach does that their own way. We've had different coaches at Arkansas that were different about that.
Yeah, and it varies. And I think right now, too, with COVID-19, they're treading very lightly. Because if you come out and you say, well, so-and-so is injured, so-and-so is injured, so-and-so is injured, so-and-so is not playing, well, you just told us they're not injured, so they must have COVID or they must be quarantined because of COVID. And again, then you flirt with HIPAA laws and all that kind of stuff. So at this point right now, in this COVID era, it is much easier to just say, no comment about who was there and who was not there, then try to get their status, because then, process of elimination.
And then you've got
you can
people
figure it
behind
out.
the scenes that hear about it, and they come in and they tell us, and we sort of know it, but we just don't
and well,
say.
and then some we've seen, like Rakeem Boyd, tweeted that he was back, and then there's some parents have put out there, our son so and so underwent surgery, so you can't control that.
We pretty much acknowledged before the game last week that Bumper Poole was not going to play.
Yeah.
I mean, we felt like we knew enough about that situation, and he didn't, even to the point where I've got this thing where I always jinx players when I pick a player of the game. So I think it was you. Somebody came up with a brilliant idea. Maybe it was Tara, that I'll just pick somebody that's injured that's not going to play, and it won't jinx them.
There you go.
And I didn't jinx him. In fact, his fellow linebacker, it helped him.
Yeah, Grant Morgan.
So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to pick more injured players.
Okay, I like the strategy there. All right, Razor Runner wants to know the box scores for college basketball routinely include a list of each player who got in the game and number of minutes played. It would be great to have something like this for football. Is there a good reason that this kind of reporting could not be done?
Sure, there's a very good reason. First of all, you're talking about 12 players maybe at the most for basketball. Depends on how many guys a coach plays.
Sure.
60 or more for football. Now look, this is a football, it's got stuff written all over it, but this is a football stat sheet that we get after every game. This is 10 pages, front and back, so that's 20 pages. I don't have a basketball one with me, but they're about 4.
Yeah.
So if you did that, what you're talking about to football, this thing would be about 40 pages.
Yeah.
And they just can't do all that.
And how do you, think about tracking that for a second, because basketball players have to check in and out. At the table, it's written down, and you can only have so many substitutions in basketball. That's a rule. In football, you're running in and out and in and out. So what are you supposed to have someone sit there clock every time? Oh, Hudson Clark went in, Hudson Clark went out. Hudson Clark went in, Hudson Clark. You're not clocking all these people running on and off depending on the defense and what the defensive call is. It's a little different with basketball and football.
I get it that some fans are more into statistics than others, but there is a limit even for some people that like a lot of stats. Now you got a good place to go to get stats.
Oh yeah, no. So it's my saving grace during football season. It's phenomenal. It is called, so Razor Runner, write this down. It is cfbstats.com, and this is great if you're a stats person, because you can go and you can look at really any stat you want in the world. You can rank it by conference, national. You can do just Power 5. You could do at home. You could do away. You could do, in 2018 or 17, it's a huge database. So if you love stats and you want to go check that out, it's great. It's updated every week, and so it's a phenomenal resource. But that's a little over the top. They do have a did play, didn't play list.
Yeah, but I use that too because the SEC does on their defensive stats. They don't list total defense. They just have things like fumbles and stuff, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So you can go to the college football thing and you get all the total defense, rushing defense, passing defense, gives you all the stuff you need.
CFBstats.com. It is impressive how comprehensive it is. So we'll give you that. All right. Superhog fan 1959R says, I watched the Auburn game play several times. If the whistle had been blown and the play was dead, how could the Auburn players hold and tackle our guys going for the ball without a personal foul? Activity after a whistle can still result in penalties, right? Why was that not called or reviewed?
I don't think you can call holding on review. I may not be a genius on the rules, but I don't think that's reviewable. Like, oh, you go back, oh, by the way, this guy held, so I don't think you do that. Here's the bottom line on that, and we just talked about it. They just got it wrong. And they made it worse with all these dopey explanations. My point is that in my life, what I've always learned the hard way when I was very young is no matter how bad the screw up, just admit the screw up, just go, oop, I blew it. And then everybody kind of goes, okay, yeah, you've screwed up. But I think the SEC would have been a lot better off in this thing if they had come back after all that rigmarole in the game and said, nope, they got it wrong. This should have gone to Arkansas. We're sorry. We'll make sure that the referees understand this from here on out and not do that anymore. And then the other, college football wouldn't have to re-emphasize the rules on that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Here we go. Blood Red Hog asks, with the Hogs now 3-1 with an asterisk, or 2-2, do you have a new prediction for their final season record? The defense appears to be one of the SEC's best.
I haven't changed my opinion. I said all along, I thought they could win 4, maybe 5 games. I still think that. I think in that range. Now, if the offense improves and if they get rid of these special teams gaffes, they might win several more. This defense is good enough for them to win a lot of games. It's just, can they move the football? What's going on with the offense? Why are they not consistent?
Yeah.
A lot of people feel like that what's going on here is that Kendall Briles is used to a more mobile quarterback, and therefore it's restricting his play calling, so he's not as effective as he would normally be. Now let's talk about Felipe Franks, because I watched him a lot when he was at Florida. People don't get this. He had a Dak Prescott type injury. He broke his ankle gruesomely, and it's a very painful injury that takes a long time to rehab, and he's not as fast or quick. He doesn't turn on a dime the way he did. He had an amazing cutting ability for a guy his size before he got injured. And he just doesn't do that as much. And also, he looks like, to me, he's being ultra careful. I don't think he wants to get hurt again. He knows what it would do if he got knocked out for the season. So he's being careful. And I also think that one of the things that he's undervalued on right now is that he's trying to avoid mistakes with this offense. If you go back and look at what's been wrong with this football team offensively for 4 previous seasons, too many screw-ups, too many trying to make a play, and then all of a sudden you do something dumb and it backfires on you. And so it's almost like he's looked at video of all that and said, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to beat ourselves. We may not be dynamic yet, but we're going to do what we have to do. And I will give the offense credit in that Ole Miss game. When it got down to a 6-point game early in the fourth quarter, and it looked like they'd lost all the momentum, that's when the offense went on that 77-yard drive or whatever it was. And that was a good drive.
Yeah.
I mean, they had first downs on the ground. They had first downs through the air. They moved the ball consistently. And they didn't have one single penalty. And then that great catch by Traylon Burks, was just terrific. So when they have to score, they have.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
far.
All right, Delta Boy wants to know, will Barry Odom be Defensive Coordinator of the Year in the SEC?
Is there anything like that? I don't think there is.
I don't think there is. There isn't. There's an SEC, there's a Head Coach of the Year,
Yeah,
right? But
there's a bunch of awards.
There is a
That's
thing
not
called the
one of them.
Broyles Award, which is handed to the top assistants in the country, and I think Barry Odom's got a pretty good argument.
That's a much more prestigious
Yeah.
thing anyway, because that's for the whole country. Now, this is the interesting thing about the Broyles Award. There have been 2 former Arkansas assistants that have won the Broyles Award, but never while they were at Arkansas. The first one was Greg Davis. He was the offensive coordinator under Danny Ford in '93, but he won it at Texas in 2005 when they won the national championship. So he won it, but not while he was at Arkansas. And then Gus Malzahn was the offensive coordinator in 2006. He won it at Auburn in 2010. So there's never been a current Razorback coach to win the Broyles Award. And some people say, the panel is probably not going to do that because it's named after the guy and it would seem like it's not fair.
It's not very fair. There are a ton of
and I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't go, well, we're going to have to, Barry Odom can't win this because the guy's name's after this school. So I think he could win it. I do. And here's why. Because of how bad the defense was last year and how good they are. I know of no school in America right now playing college football where there's been that kind of turnaround on defense from one year to the next. They literally have gone from one of the worst defenses in the country to one of the best.
Is this better than the Rob Smith 1-year turnaround that we saw under him? I know we got to go back. I put you on the spot. We'd have to go back and maybe look exactly what that looked like.
Well, it's not over yet, so we can't say for sure. But this is pretty amazing. I mean, they were just so bad in so many areas. Just cave in and give up huge chunks of plays, and now they're just goal line stands and unbelievable interceptions and fumble recoveries. I mean, it's terrific. So I think he's got a shot at it.
Yeah. All right. My 3 Boneheads has a similar question. How many awards do you think the Arkansas coaching staff will be considered for? Also, how will COVID affect the bowl season? Games are already being postponed.
Okay, the only other one I can think was Sam Pittman. If Arkansas continues to play well, he might be SEC Coach of the Year. I think they're going to have to win 6 games, maybe something like that. But Pittman could win that. Bowl games getting canceled because of COVID. I don't think the games will be canceled, but you definitely could see nobody in the stands. You know, I think that could happen. It's just hard to say right now. We don't know where anything's headed. We don't know about vaccines.
And it would be interesting to see, too, if they, with bowl games, to kind of cut down on things like that, do you bring in the teams earlier so you can do a full, you know, week or 2 weeks of testing before you play?
And also then isolate them.
Yeah.
Here's something else I want to mention because I read it just last night. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's a company that's manufactured this device. It's some kind of based on a GPS, and you
Is
wear
it the chips?
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked about it.
You wear it, and it's connected to a supercomputer, and it transmits information.
Yeah.
So if you test positive, you tell them, or it gets turned into these people, then they can immediately through this computer tell who you've been in contact with, and it lets those people know, okay, you better go get tested, you better do this or that. And they say that if this gets in widespread use, like almost everybody's wearing a mask right now, it could knock this thing down in a hurry because you're eliminating people spreading it. Virtually as soon as you get it, or you know, you're isolated until you don't have it anymore.
Yeah, the NBA bubble used it, and the SEC is now using it too. So it's a cool little chip. It looks like as big as like an Apple Watch face, and like if you had it and I had it and I walked by you, it would say, "Oh, Alyssa walked by Mike Irwin at 2:58 today," or whatever.
Yeah, and would it tell how long we were in contact?
I think so.
Because that's important.
Yeah, exactly.
If you stopped and talked to somebody.
Well, it would say my device and your device were close enough to read each other for X amount of whatever.
Yeah, for like 2 minutes, 4 minutes, or whatever. Then that increases the likelihood, if you had it, that I would get it.
Right. Technology is insane. All right. Pooh-Wig. That's right. Okay. Pooh-Wig wants to know how hard will it be to keep this coaching staff together as we've become more and more successful and had more and more positive press. Concerns are already growing of Odom or possibly even Pittman being courted off for other jobs. How valid would this concern be? Pittman ain't going anywhere, y'all.
Well, what concerns are growing? Where? On the internet?
Yeah.
No, you're right. Sam Pittman's not going anywhere. This is his dream job.
Yeah.
We all know him. We believe that. His wife would kill him if he left this job.
Yeah, he's not going to sacrifice his marriage.
She almost killed him when he left here as an assistant coach.
For a second time.
The only way he's leaving here is if they told him to leave, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Odom, you know, here's the deal. You have to understand offensive and defensive coordinators. Most of them, it is extremely important who their boss is. Because if you don't have the right boss, that person can micromanage you. Like, I would not want to be an offensive coordinator under Gus Malzahn. You don't want that. You want somebody that trusts you and hired you because of your expertise, and they let you do your job. Doesn't mean they don't ever ask you a question, but you have a good relationship. And Sam Pittman and Barry Odom have that relationship that we talked about all the way back early last summer, where they went on walks every day and they were talking about stuff, and they're just friends. And I don't think he would leave here for a coordinator's job. Somebody mentioned, oh, well, LSU, that's going to open up. He could go there. I don't think he'd go there. Why would he want to work for when he can talk to his buddy Sam Pittman? You know, so I don't think he's going there.
Okay.
Would he go for another head coaching job? We would have to ask him that.
It's got to be the right one. I think that's everyone's answer. It would have to be
But he's
the right
never
one.
been asked that, so I can't say.
Sure.
But here's what I would make note of, because we know this about Sam Pittman. He does not generally make his assistant coaches available to the media. Now, why is that? I'm guessing here, because they've never said. Coaches don't like to talk to the media. That's one of the things you don't like when you become a head coach, is you're always having to talk to yo-yos like us, and then people get mad and they're all on the internet and all this stuff. Much better to be able to stay in your little room and scheme and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that Barry Odom is very happy about the fact that Sam Pittman protects him, keeps him away from the media, and lets him do his job.
Yeah.
And he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I can guarantee you, and I can tell you with certainty, that John Chavis hated talking to us every week.
Absolutely.
He absolutely hated it. So maybe there's something to it. Austin Hog fan says, it seems like Texas A&M is playing much better and has the same opportunity to get healthy as we do with an extra week. So other than potentially COVID keeping players out of this game, what do you feel is going to be the biggest priority we focus on? Stop Kellen Mond. There's my answer.
First of all, I like Arkansas's chances in this game, because they finally, I've never Mond is really inconsistent. He makes mistakes, and you have to make him pay for his mistakes, and Arkansas hasn't done that. They've almost beaten these guys several times over the last few years, and it's usually been defense that screwed up. So if they play the way they played against Ole Miss, I think they got a good chance of really going after this guy and causing some problems, forcing some turnovers. So that's part of it. So what do you have to do? You got to move the football consistently. You got to stop bogging down, stop having to punt, you know, just take the ball. The run game has to improve. That's the part that's kind of a mystery to me. Should be better than it is.
The one thing A&M has, and I watched a little bit of that A&M Florida game, which I wanted no one to win that game, but the one thing A&M has is their wide receivers and their tight ends are huge. Those are big dudes, and so they are going to be have to discipline in that secondary to take these guys down, because one guy ain't going to be able to do it. These guys are big. So that's the thing. Can we just beat Jimbo Fisher? Like that can I just that's my college football wish.
I mean,
just beat Jimbo.
He doesn't wear his mask. He's dopey. You know, we want to take him down, and he's an Aggie.
I'm just bitter. Okay, here we go. Nash WPS 18 says, I'm pulling a Bob Holt here, but another 2 for 1. What's going on with Trey Knox? Is he buried on the wide receiver depth chart? I'm assuming he's healthy because I see him on special teams. Also, do we see this offense flow better with the future true dual threat in Hornsby?
Well, first of all, he's anything but buried on the depth chart because he's a starter. And you can go right now and look up their depth chart, and he's listed as one of the 3 #1 wide receivers. So he's not buried. For whatever reason, I think Felipe Franks doesn't look to him first. We mentioned he had that good game against Mississippi State, and then against Auburn he dropped some passes. So I think they kind of weren't looking at him as much. He's just off to a slow start. The guy's tremendously talented. He's got good hands. I don't know what's going on there. But I just believe it's a matter of time. For one thing, when Traylon Burks is playing well, he's going to get most of the looks. He just is. He's just too reliable. And then they've got several other guys, even backup guys. You know, Davion Warren didn't do hardly anything this week, and he's a really good player. So part of it is just you have so many receivers back there, you can't get the ball to all of them. But I think, you know, Trey Knox will be fine.
Trey didn't get a catch, but I think you have a lot of merit in the fact that maybe him and Felipe are still just working on that chemistry a little bit.
And the Hornsby thing, this is my opinion. Doesn't mean it's fact. I look at these other quarterbacks. I look at Facebook a lot, and I don't interfere usually in people's Facebook. I'm just interested in what they have to say. And they were going off on Felipe. Oh, I don't think he's the guy. He didn't do this. He didn't know. I think he's the only quarterback they've got.
These are Arkansas fans?
Yes.
Did they just like temporarily forget the past 2 years?
I don't know.
Are you for real?
I don't know.
What?
But I'm sitting there
thinking, beggars can't be choosers, y'all. Come on.
I'm looking at the options. KJ Jefferson, who came in and got squashed when he tried to run twice near the goal line. Malik Hornsby, who came in and got squashed twice trying to run with the ball. They've got this other guy, Coley, that's coming in. You know, he's more of a running quarterback. And there are people, again, that say that Kendall Briles won't do his proper play calling until he gets his kind of guy in there. And so maybe Coley's that guy. I don't know.
I mean, and Malik Hornsby is a 4-star. The kid's a freshman. Like, give him some time, right?
But this is where I'm at, because I want you to understand I'm as nutty as they are most of the time. If Felipe Franks comes out, and I guess there's a chance he will, I mean, he hasn't had a great year, but I don't know if he would take advantage of this one time you can come back if you want. But let's say he doesn't. What's that guy's name at Ole Miss, the backup, John Reese Plumlee?
Plumlee.
I saw him last year, and I was like, are you kidding me? And I couldn't believe he's not the starter. So here he is sitting there. Goofball Corral is just throwing interceptions left and right, and he's just sitting over there going,
You want a chance to get Plumlee?
Yeah.
There's one phone call Sam Pittman needs to make before he calls Plumlee.
Who's that?
Dave Van Horn. Dave? Yeah, Dave, do you need another pitcher?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, okay, great. So there's this quarterback at Ole Miss that I want, but he's also a pitcher for Ole Miss, so I'm going to need you to help me out and try to get him to Arkansas. Okay, bye.
And see, you have to go through third parties because you can't initiate it.
Right, no, I know.
So you got to get these spies.
It's kind of a fun story, and it's a funny story. It's kind of how Jimbo got Jameis Winston was because Mike Martin was recruiting him for baseball. And Mike picks up the phone and says, "Hey, Jimbo, I see this baseball player I really, really want, but I don't have enough scholarships for him. So you go check him out and see if you could sign him for football." And so that's how that happened. So this happens where one coach is looking at him for one sport, but they call the other sport and are like, "Hey, let's."
Talk about
Connor Nolan.
You talk about a quarterback that can run. Plumlee can. He just gouged Arkansas last year.
Well,
he's fast.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know, but you'd have to see if he could go over down and help the baseball team out some more. Not that the baseball team needs help.
Play for Arkansas or Ole Miss in baseball, that dopey thing they've got, and the gripey guys are head coach.
Hey, I would take it in a heartbeat. But again, I'm just saying. All right, Boss Hog 33 wants to know, by playing at A&M this year and hopefully in Fayetteville next year, if Hunter gets his wish, does that extend the Jerry Wood contract 2 years to 2016 or no?
I asked today, and I was told that decision hasn't been made, and that's all they were willing to say. But now I'm going to read something into that, because we all know that A&M wants that contract over. That's why it's being played there this year. They don't like it, and why would they? They just, once they built that 100,000 seat, once they expanded to 100,000 seats, why do they want to go to Jerry World that holds less? They don't. So they want that game at home. Arkansas has now figured out, after Jeff Long left, well, A&M is a conference game, and we need conference games in Fayetteville. We got too many non-conference games that people don't show up for. We want that game.
Yeah.
So they would like to add that back. So the solution is to tell Jerry, hey, we're going to continue to play there, but we're going to let A&M out of this contract, and we're going to start playing a non-conference game, rotating every year with different teams. And it doesn't have to be Big 12 teams. There are a lot of teams that would love to come in and play in that facility.
Yeah.
You could get Big 10 teams. So you could have, we talked earlier about a good non-conference game. You could make that the game.
Yeah.
And it would be
it'd be fun.
be on TV. It'd be a big game early in the year.
You could easily make it like the old Southwest Classic Showdown or something like that. It would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you could just Jerry Worldville or whatever.
And this was shocking, and obviously we knew when we were going back, and I was counting all the home games, SEC home games Arkansas had lost, and I was backtracking from this year to 2016, and Florida was their last win. I think it was 2018. They had 2 home SEC games.
Isn't that dumb?
Two home SEC games because they had to go play A&M in Jerry World, and then they played Missouri in Little Rock. So 2. You're an SEC team and you play 2 home games in your league on campus. That's what they're trying to avoid, I think. This contract, you look at that and that doesn't make any sense to me.
So the simple solution is to switch that to a non-conference game, and then you get an A&M every other year here, which they need. So that's the short answer to that. But right now, that decision hasn't been made.
Yeah. All right, Ingerhog says, hypothetically, if a bunch of new stud recruits wanted to board for 2021, you have to honor current commitments first, right? I wouldn't think this staff would be the type to go on their relationships with current commits.
Okay.
That is a very...
well, most coaches don't do it.
Right.
I called Otis, because Otis knows these things, because he covers recruiting. I didn't just rely on my own self.
Yeah.
And
That's
Phone
a friend.
I called Otis, and he said, no, Pittman's not that kind of guy anyway. But the main reason he thinks he wouldn't do it, Arkansas has a bunch of 3-star guys this year committed that they actually think are 4 stars, and that happens a lot. A coaching staff will say, this guy's misevaluated. Coley, who we talked about, is the only time he's a 4-star is on ESPN. The rest of them have him at 3. And some of these don't even act like he's actually gotten a lot of offers, but some of those websites don't list very many. But they think he's a lot better than, his star system would be. So that's one reason why they're not going to suddenly, if they start winning a lot of games and people suddenly start noticing them, what that will do is they will turn that to 2022 and 2023, and they will go ahead and take the guys they're bringing in because they like them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hudson Clark is a perfect example of someone with no stars showing everybody up.
Isn't that an amazing story?
It's incredible. I think what's incredible is like the whole entire story. Not only is he a kid who just happens to be a walk-on, who is just freaking exploding right now on the field because he got an opportunity, because he paid his dues in practice. But then you take a step back, and both his parents are alums, and they're from the state of Arkansas, even though he grew up in Dallas. And his grandfather's in the Arkansas High School State Hall of Fame, and the Berryville High School football, stadium is named Clark Stadium after his grandfather. Like the ties, you just keep unraveling, and you're like, I mean, you couldn't write this any better.
Yeah, and he's just, I like the fact that he did all this stuff, and then when he was interviewed after the game, he's like talking technical stuff. He's not doing the, oh yeah, it was really cool, I did that. He's like giving technical reasons why they were good and why they came up with these explanations, because he's just focused on that stuff. So it is a great story.
Yeah, you gotta love it. Gotta love watching number 6. He's a fun kid to watch play. You can't help but root for him. All right, that is gonna do it for Ask Mike. Great group of questions this week. It's been a while since I've done this. I've missed you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
All right, if you have more questions for Mike for next week, of course, just head over to hogville.com. If you have an account, go and ask a question. If you don't, just make one. It's free and ask away. For Mike Irwin, I'm Alyssa Orange. We will see you next week.